1.
Hello, and welcome to League of Women Voters of Naperville's Candidate Forum for Indian Prairie School District 204 School Board. This event is being recorded. I'm Becky Simon with the League of Women Voters of Naperville. We are a nonpartisan organization. We do not support or oppose candidates for public office. For tonight's forum, League is happy to continue our long-standing partnership with the Indian Prairie Parents Council. Now, we understand that feelings are running high for this particular election, so let me assure you that you can always rely on the League of Women Voters to present fair and civil candidate forums where each candidate is allowed an equal chance to respond. All candidates have been invited to participate, and all candidates present will be given an equal time to speak. Our moderators are League trained, and to avoid any conflict of interest, they are always from outside of the district they are moderating in. The questions we will be asking tonight are all relevant to the office the candidates are running for, and they are questions that can be answered by all candidates. Similarly, our online voter guide, Vote 411, is also nonpartisan. For Vote 411, all candidates have been invited to participate, and the candidates themselves have written their own responses to questions, which are posted complete and unedited. Also, candidates have the opportunity to post their own video clip, and a video of this candidate forum will also be linked to Vote 411. Now, tonight, our forum format looks a little bit different because we have more candidates than usual. In order to give each candidate equal time to respond to questions and to allow a reasonable number of questions to be put forth, we have expanded our forum time. And now I would like to introduce Peter Barnard of the Indian Prairie Parents Council. Peter.
Thank you, Becky. Good evening, I'm Peter Barnard, Treasurer of the Indian Prairie Parents Council. And given my speaking role, obviously I'm the IPPC board member who drew the short straw. As some of you may know, the IPPC is the umbrella PTA to which all the district PTAs report, from preschool through high school and beyond. And as a PTA, we're not allowed to endorse particular candidates, but we do endorse dialogue and discussion. Our role is to advocate for all the students of the district, and we've advocated by providing over $60,000 of funding over the last 12 months. But how better to advocate than to help parents make informed school board choices? So first, I'd like to thank Becky and the League of Women Voters, all the members of the League, for the opportunity to partner with them on this important event. This election, like every election, can influence the education of our children and the health and direction of our district. And we partnered with the League many times for these events because how better to support our district, and most importantly, our kids, than to provide a forum where parents can learn about school board candidates. So thank you, League. My second thank you is to all the candidates who are also advocates for our kids. You've thrown your hats into the ring in order to support and improve our nationally recognized district. Your decision to dedicate significant time and effort to IPSD 204 is to be congratulated and respected. So thank you, and we look forward to hearing from each of you. All that being said, let me finally introduce Carol Tidwell, the adult leadership in this Zoom. She will ask the questions and is the official cat herder who will keep us on track as we gain insight into each of these candidates. Carol, thank you, and I yield the floor.
Thank you, Peter and Becky, and good evening to everyone. Welcome to the candidate forum for the District 204 school board election in the spring of 2021. It's being sponsored tonight by the Naperville League of Women Voters and the Indian Prairie Parents Council. Thanks also to the audience who is watching this tonight live on Zoom and Facebook or watching a recording. My name is Carol Tidwell, and I have been trained, as Peter said, by the League of Women Voters to conduct candidate forums. I do not live or vote in the 204 district. We're following league rules for the forum tonight. After opening statements by the candidates, I will ask a number of questions that were prepared by the sponsors and which were not shared with the candidates ahead of time. Since this is a forum and not a debate, I ask that the candidates direct their statements and responses to the audience and not to each other. As per forum rules, the candidates will not use their cell phones or other electronic devices during the forum when answering questions. The candidates will each have 1 minute to present an opening statement in turn, and up to 1 minute to respond to each question again in turn. At the end of the forum, they will each have 1 minute to make their closing statement. Our timekeeper will keep us on track in the interests of time and fairness to each candidate. I ask the candidates to watch the screen as you are speaking. Reminders will appear at 30 seconds, and then at 15 seconds, and finally a stop sign will appear. The candidate who is speaking should wind down at 15 seconds and stop speaking when the stop sign appears, although I will allow a couple of extra seconds so you can complete your sentence, but please, no compound sentences. We want to get in as many questions as we can and give the same amount of time to all candidates. The candidates will be asked to speak alphabetically, and we will rotate who has the chance to be first to answer a question. But due to the time constraint tonight, not every candidate may have the opportunity to answer a question first. Okay, we are going to get started. So I'd ask that all candidates now be on the screen. And I ask that you keep yourselves muted until it is your turn to speak. Let's begin with opening statements. Candidate Adcock, you have 1 minute for your opening statement, please. Go ahead.
Thank you, Carol, and thank you to all who were involved in hosting this forum. 100 years ago, ordinary women did something extraordinary by banding together for the cause and lifting each other up for advancement. They are now known as suffragists, and I'm grateful for their efforts. I, Shannon Adcock, have banded together over the last several months with the community to advocate for students and equitable access to District 204 education. It's a privilege to be running for the school board. My husband of 17 years and I choose to raise our 3 children here because we believe in the quality of public education and the values of this community. As the first woman in my family to graduate college, I appreciate the transformative outcomes education can provide. During my sales career, operating photography business, volunteering in the PTA, doing local fundraising, and serving on church councils, I have the proven abilities to work well with the team, hear different perspectives, and participate in discussions as an independent thinker. Any council on which I've served can attest to this, and also the fact that I usually bring food and lighthearted humor. As a board candidate, I've been committed to learning about district operations and governance while participating in every candidate forum and event. This commitment will continue if elected. All of my life experiences have given me the grit to tackle the learning curve, the goals, and the oath of a school board member.
Thank you, Candidate Adcock. Next opening statement is Candidate Donahue.
Hi, I'm Lori Donahue and I'm running for re-election. My children were fortunate to attend District 204 schools from kindergarten through high school graduation. 2,340 are the number of days a student is in public education from kindergarten through 12th grade. I want to make sure each one of those days is full of enlightenment and the joy of learning. While I was on the school board with Susan Demings, we made social emotional learning and equity district goals while maintaining academic excellence. I want to make sure everyone has that opportunity. I have a bachelor's degree in computer engineering, MBA, and I've led very large technical and business teams, including $1 billion purchasing program and a $250 million investment portfolio. I do many volunteer activities in the district, including with my therapy dogs with special needs students. I lead the Voter Girl registration program for the League of Women Voters, teaching students the importance of voting. And I'm on the board of directors for the Indian Prairie Education Foundation.
Thank you, candidate Donahue. I'm going to remind everyone again to please keep your eye on the timer and let's wind down at 15 seconds. Thank you. Next opening statement is candidate Fosdick. Please go ahead when you're ready.
All right, good evening. Thank you so much for having us tonight. My name is Allison Fosdick. I'm a longtime Naperville resident, and my husband and I have 4 children. The oldest is in college. We have a high schooler, a middle schooler, and an elementary student right now. I work part-time as an English professor at Aurora University, and I feel lucky to have time to invest and be involved in our community. I most recently serve as the vice president of the Orchestra Parents Association at Neuqua Valley High School. And I've also served recently as a PTA president, art awareness volunteer, and community participant. My goals, if elected, are to focus on equity, making sure that every kid gets what they need to get the education we're known for. 2, to improve their social emotional learning and skills to deal with stress and anxiety. And finally, to increase communication between the district and families so that we can move forward together. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next opening statement is from candidate Heder. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Hello, everyone. Thank you, IPPC and League of Women Voters, for this opportunity tonight. I'm honored to be here. I am Sabah Heder, and I'm running to help all students learn, lead, and thrive. I'm a wife and a mother to 2 beautiful and kind middle and elementary school kids. I have a master's degree in wildlife science, and I have worked to protect the endangered species and our precious environment. After having kids, I started my business and immersed myself in community service. I train people to become wellness teachers. I provide consulting services to various corporate organizations. I also teach students of all ages the skills and tools to manage and improve their physical, emotional, and mental well-being. My mother is my mentor. She runs a school for underprivileged kids, and working with her has given me the insight to inner workings of a school and how they run. If elected, I'll be an advocate for social, emotional, and mental health of our children, help allocate resources to students equitably, and foster community collaboration and communication. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, our next candidate is candidate Harris with an opening statement. Please go ahead.
All right, thank you. For over 20 years, I've served in educational leadership roles, K through 12, community colleges, university capacities. That experience includes teaching, faculty hiring, curriculum design, directing student and teacher evaluation. Therefore, I have real-world classroom and business experience. Today, I'm employed at Lewis University as a program director and assistant professor at the College of Business. My platforms are 4 things. Let's get our students back in the classroom as soon as possible. My second platform issue is student services, increase student success by helping all students grow socially, emotionally, and academically. Manage district resources is number 3. And number 4, diversity, equity, and inclusion. My education includes a PhD from Benedictine University, a master's degree from Roosevelt University, and a BA degree from The Ohio State University. Thank you for the opportunity.
Thank you. Next opening statement is from candidate Jane. Please go ahead when you are ready.
Hello, my name is Sapna Jain, and I believe in the African proverb that it takes a village to raise a child. I benefited from a village that understood my potential, and I want to do the same for District 204. As a parent, educator, and a community advocate, I believe I can provide a unique perspective to boardroom discussions and decisions. I'm a mother of a 3rd grader and a 7th grader, a professor in the communication department at North Central College, and the founder and artistic director of a nonprofit organization. If elected, I will commit to using an equity lens when making decisions. I will advocate for equity in education, developing social emotional competencies, and continued academic excellence during the pandemic and the years after. I look forward to sharing my views with you this evening, and I hope to earn your vote. Thank you.
Thank you. Next up is candidate Kosak. When you are ready, please give your opening statement.
Thank you. I can sum up in 2 words the reason why I'm running for the school board: our kids. Every decision that needs to be made at the board level needs to put our kids first. District 204 has always been a leader in education, and yet we need to set the bar higher. This is a 4-year term, and there are going to be a plethora of issues we need to attack beyond this pandemic. Some of those include hiring and retaining high effective teachers. We need to look at our above average class sizes, and as well as the achievement gap that exists in our district. And all of these need to be addressed while remaining fiscally responsible. I bring 25 years of public education to the table, and for the past 15 years, I have served in an administrative role. So I know what data-driven questions need to be asked of our district leadership in order to challenge them to think creatively, to solve solutions, and do what is best for our kids. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, next opening statement is candidate Narayan. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Hello, thank you for giving me the opportunity to be here. And first, let me commend Shannon for talking about the great work that League of Women has done since 20s on the suffrage movement. It's an honor to be addressing that organization today. I'm Rajesh Narayan. I'm running for 204 school board member. I'm running for the school board because I have one daughter that goes to Scullin. So I have a vested interest in the success of our schools. I have master's in economics and I'm a small business owner. I've lived in Naperville since 2007. I'm active in the community. I'm a board member at FIA, Federation of Indian Association, and a vice president at ICA, Indian American Cultural Association. I stand for excellence in education, diversity, equity, and inclusion. As an Indian American, I think I'll add some diversity to the board myself. We are a diverse community at Naperville, and we have to celebrate that diversity.
Thank you so much. Next opening statement is candidate Mei Leung. And candidate, let me ask you, can you see the timer from where you are?
I cannot.
Okay.
But I will try to be on time.
I will speak then when 30 seconds and 15 seconds and stop comes up so that you're not caught off guard. All right,
Okay.
Go ahead when you are ready, please.
Yeah. Good evening. I'm Mei Liang. I've been a nurse in China, England, and the United States. Both my children graduated from Neuqua Valley High School. I value education as key to good future. In the past 15 years, I've worked as a public health nurse in Will County Health Department. I've also volunteered at Bolingbrook Christian Health Center for over a decade. I'm a current board director of Saddle Creek Homeowners Association. In the past few years, I learned about the heartbreaking news of students committing suicide. If I elected, I would promote the holistic growth of all students, especially for mental, emotional development. Secondly, I make girls drop out from school due to lack of family guidance and support. I want to help students in similar situation by promoting collaboration with families and community. Thank you.
Thank you so much. Next is candidate Sakaria. Your opening statement when you are ready, please.
Thank you, Carol. Thanks everyone for inviting me here. My name is Kader Sakaria. I have currently a board member at NCTV 17. I've lived in Naperville for 24 years and a proud father of 3 children. My eldest went into the district and she's in the pre-med program, and my younger daughter is a current high school student. My son attends an alternative program that can fully accommodate his special needs. Like every parent, I have been a constant advocate for my children's education, and that's a chief reason I'm actually running. My other motivation comes from my professional background. I'm a chief technology officer at RNL, a higher education firm. In this position, I'm able to observe the higher education in the US developing, and specifically the growth of microlearning. We need to prepare every student to achieve success after graduation, however they define it, which means we need to incorporate these higher education pathways in our K through 12 curriculum. Thank you.
Thank you. And our last candidate to give opening statements is candidate Taylor Deming. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Good evening. I'm Susan Taylor Deming. I thank the League of Women Voters and IPPC for this evening's Candidates Forum. I'm a first-term school board member, 26-year resident of the district, and I have two girls that graduated from Waubonsie Valley High School. My bachelor's degree is from Rice University. My MBA is in management from Columbia University. I currently serve as the director of leadership giving at Elgin Community College, where I have a chance as part of the foundation to help students achieve their dreams. During my 4-year board tenure, I'm extremely proud to share that along with candidate Donahue, we as a board have increased enrollment for underrepresented students in AP classes. We've increased preschool opportunities for all students, and we have increased technology rollout, #1 in the state, 2nd through 12th grade. While seeking to re-enter school as quickly as possible, but most importantly, as safely as possible, our board will stay attuned to our emotional and social needs of our students while creating robust academic and career pathways for both students in school and those that remain remote at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, we'll get started with our questions now. And the first question will go to candidate Donahue. And let me just say that I will ask the question of the first candidate, the candidate who's going first. If anyone along the way needs me to repeat the question, just please ask and I'll be happy to do that. All right, candidate Donahue. The first question is, what factors and metrics should the district use in transforming to full-time in-person instruction? Would you follow guidelines published by governmental agencies such as the CDC and the DuPage County Health Department? You have up to 1 minute.
Yeah, so as a current board member, we have looked at what measurements we need to follow, and we definitely are looking at the CDC and the state information as well as DuPage, and most recently the Northwestern local data, so we could get down to our exact zip codes. So I very much support using the health department's recommendations to guide our district's decisions, and as they lighten up the requirements or the guidance, we'll also look at doing that within our district. I am all about making sure that we're providing a safe environment for our students, both in person and those who choose to stay remote, to give them an opportunity to stay remote if they require that. So thank you.
Thank you. First question then next goes to candidate Fosdick. Please go ahead when you're ready.
All right, thank you. I actually support the current metrics that the school board is using to make those decisions about opening up the schools at this point. We've seen continual progress in opening up those schools and getting kids back in the building who are able to be back in the building, while making sure we give an opportunity for those students who are not able to come back at this time, a chance to continue their remote learning to get through this difficult year. I've said multiple times, this year is almost this generation's World War. We are all suffering, we are all challenged, and we can all get through this together. I think patience, commitment to understanding and communication are keys to do that. And I think we can keep moving forward that way. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, first question next goes to candidate Heder. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you so much. I also echo the thoughts and suggestions suggested by Laurie and candidate Fosdick. I will continue to follow the same metrics that the school is following, but at the same time, keep a close eye on the data, that new data that keeps coming in. It is this close eye on the data that we are keeping has helped us to allow the numbers to go down. And we have to continue to make sure that we are cautious in our approach. We make sure that we follow the scientific data and make decisions that allow for our students to be able to go back to school full-time as soon as possible. At the same time, be able to provide an option to students that are not ready to go back to school full-time yet for various reasons. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Candidate Harris, that question is to you now. Please go ahead.
Let me say again, without any doubt, I would like to see all children being able and all students being able to get back into the classroom as soon as possible. Clearly, looking at the data is one of the smart things to do. But I've also been listening to the parents. I've listened to some of the parents that have special needs that absolutely want their kids back in school as soon as possible. They just feel like there's no other substitute. So when we look at the CDC, the state information and the Northwestern information, well, that's good. But again, my role is to try to get our children, our students back into the schools as soon as possible. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next up is Candidate Jane. Please go ahead when you are ready.
Thank you. I think all of us here agree that in-person learning is the best. And that's not really being debated. It's really about when do we bring them in and how do we bring them in. And as board members, if I were elected, our primary responsibility will be to ensure that our students are safe and that our staff members are safe. And as the fourth largest district in the state, that means we are in charge of a lot of people, and we need to adhere to safety protocols while ensuring that students get the high quality education that they need. In order to do this, I will continue to follow the guidelines that the current board is doing. I will listen to stakeholders, and most importantly, I will try to model effective leadership and listening and collaborative skills, because our kids are watching, and we need to model that so that anxiety levels are not exacerbated, but reduced. And I think children will then learn to be better citizens of their home communities by doing that.
Thank you. Next up is Candidate Kosak. If you'll make sure you're unmuted and go ahead, please.
Thank you. Safety is of the utmost importance for both our students and our staff. We offer the remote choice for those students and their families who still may not feel comfortable doing the hybrid in-person model. However, we need to move forward and provide a 5-day option for our students who are in desperate need of getting back to in-person school. We do not know what ISB is going to require of us in the fall, but there does need to be a focus on a reintegration plan that focuses on a 5 full-day in-person face-to-face learning as an option. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, Candidate Narayan, would you go ahead, please, and please unmute yourself.
Hi, ever since I decided to run for the school board, I've received a lot of calls from parents, and they're all very distressed. And breaks my heart. Our kids are getting suboptimal education. The grades have fallen. Child abuse has gone up. But we also want to open the school with all the safety measures. I would follow the CDC guidelines. I would look at the positivity rate. And if you can open the school with the CDC guidelines, 6 feet distance, wear the mask, why not? And we should have, all the parents should have an option of a 5-day school and a hybrid solution. If somebody doesn't want to send the kids, they can do remote learning. But parents who want to send the kids for all 5 days, they should have an option, of course, with all the safety measures as suggested by CDC guidelines. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Mei Leung, that question is to you now. Please go ahead when you're ready.
Thank you. Yeah, I think District 204 has done good job. I agree with them with the to follow the CDC guideline and also the Northwestern metric. And I think they've done all this is for the safety and health of the students and teachers. But even though remote learning is not ideal, it has been an alternative to continue schooling during the pandemic. However, you know, I have a plan for the for reopening, and as a public health nurse, and if I'm elected, I will support full hybrid learning as soon as the teacher complete their COVID-19 vaccination in spring. Further down the line, I will plan a full return school as long as the herd immunity is reached in the area. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Sakaria, you are up next. Please unmute. Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you, Carol. So, you know, I do agree that we need to follow the CDC guidelines and also the local authorities. I do want to bring kids back into school 5 days a week as soon as it's feasible, but with two core principles, right? First principle is creating transparency. We need to follow science in the expert guidance, but we also need to be very clear about the process with our community. And second is equity. We need to make sure that any decision for reopening policy, that we recognize that remote learning is disproportionately impact the marginalized students. So what we need to make sure and ensure that the district is flexible about reopening and for students and families who needs to have remote as an option.
Thank you. Candidate Taylor Deming, that question is to you now.
Thank you so much. Yes, I, as a current board member, I fully support the status that we have taken thus far in ensuring that we follow CDC and the DuPage County Health Guidelines, as well as looking and incorporating the information from Northwestern University. One of the things that's been gratifying is to have a chance to go into schools at each particular level, as I have done, to see the accommodations that are being made in order to bring our students back in as quickly and safely as possible. We are continuing to look at how we can bring students in more days during the week. Right now, we're going to look at 4 and bringing them in, continuing to ensure that we follow 6 feet of social distance between our students. Their mask will be used, and we will not be providing lunch during those days that they are there. But we are committed to having our students back as quickly, as safely as possible, but again, ensuring that we provide robust academic opportunities for those that continue to stay at home. Thank you very much.
Thank you. And Candidate Adcock, the question is to you now, please.
Thank you. Since the pandemic began, I have, as a citizen and as a parent, researched public health organizations, Illinois Department of Public Health, CDC, et cetera, local county statistics, medical journals, and Illinois State Board of Education policies to discern what options would be safest, not just for our family, but for the community. This method of reasoning would apply to my role as a board member. These sources have published guidelines and resources to safely return to in-person learning. At my candidate site, I've published statistics from DuPage County Health Department and statements of the American Academy of Pediatrics. The rolling 7-day average in January, when Indian Prairie began hybrid, was actually higher than when I initially advocated for a hybrid choice in August. All of these references that I've pointed to, among others, have advocated for making a return to in-person learning a priority with clearly outlined mitigation strategies. The Illinois State Board of Education has stated that local districts have the autonomy and authority regarding transition to full-time in-person learning.
Thank you so much. All right, we'll go to the second question now, and the first person to answer that will be Candidate Fosdick. So let me read question number 2 for you. What elements of or lessons learned from remote learning should be incorporated into the ongoing running of District 204? Under what conditions would you support remote learning as a continued option for district families for the 2021 through 2022 school year. Candidate Fosdick, that is to you first, please.
All right, thank you. One of the things I think we can take from remote learning is how valuable for elementary school kids intervention time can be. The opportunity for teachers to work one-on-one with their students, I think, is exceptionally valuable, and we've seen that during the remote learning time. Another thing that I think is really valuable at the higher levels is on Mondays right now, the kids having an opportunity to go to any teacher at some point and connect with them and ask personal questions as they're working through their homework, as they're studying. One of the things that I think that we should work on going forward as far as remote learning is that we offer it for sure as long as the state requires it. But at that point, we're a public school district. And as Sepna said earlier, we all, I think, fully believe that in-person learning is the best way for our kids to learn. And so I'd like to focus our energies and our monies on that. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next is candidate Heder. Please go ahead when you are ready.
Thank you. Being able to go remote during this pandemic has allowed for us to see how our students are resilient. I have two kids and one is not happy with the hybrid and being online. I have another child who's really thriving and happy. And I think we are at a point where we have to really be creative in using these tools that we were accelerated to use, in really thinking how we can use technology in the future to make education more accessible to students who maybe do not have access to quality education right now. We have to realize that there are students in the district that may be struggling because they have responsibilities at home, and maybe providing them this online program would help them perform better at school. We are not able to have snow days, so kids are able to continue to study. That's a huge advantage. And so we will really have to be creative in making sure that we use this opportunity to grow further in the future. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, next, candidate Harris, that question is to you. Please go ahead.
That's a fascinating question. And I think it really depends upon how the curriculum is designed for those individual students at those individual grades. When I consider the theoretical benefits of online, it's supposed to help the discussions. It's supposed to help your written assignments, also help the students to do additional research. So in so many ways, we've got to kind of maybe look at what we're doing and see how we can make it work. We're doing it at the college level. So when children leave the 12th grade and they go into their freshman year, this is the primary methodology that we're using. So again, I think we've got some of the most brightest kids in the world in our district. So I think we need to kind of relook at that.
Thank you. Next, candidate Jane, when you're ready, please unmute. Go ahead.
As someone who teaches primarily first-year college students, I got to experience in-person learning during the pandemic and online learning. And I will tell you, both had its benefits and its challenges. There's no question that in-person learning is rich. As teachers, we get so much feedback just by how a student sits in their chair, right? And sometimes online, the student turns their camera off, and that has been a real issue in terms of engagement and just assessing where they are. But despite that, as an educator, and from what I've heard from many teachers, there's so much that we can retain. Some students really thrived in this environment. They found their teachers more accessible. They were comfortable in their environment and therefore could participate more. Parents found conferencing a lot more accessible, or even just approaching teachers more accessible in that realm. I don't think the technology is quite there to replace in person, but there's a lot of good things.
Thank you. Candidate Kosak, the question is to you now, please.
Thank you. Working in a large high school myself, I have seen the good, the bad, and the ugly of remote learning. I think what it has shown us is that our teachers and our students can adapt to change. And I think that's really important. And I've talked to a couple of community members whose kids are thriving remotely and would like to see an option of that continuum. I would ask for a parent and a student and a teacher survey of what has worked well in remotes, and then urge our district leadership to look into that and see if we financially would be able to do that. But I think we need to understand what has worked well for our kids, what has worked well for our teachers, and combine that together. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Narayan, the question is to you now. Go ahead, please.
Hi. I have a daughter who's 12 years old, and she just can't wait to go back to school. She's missing the personal interaction. As humans, we are social animals. We need to interact with people. I don't think technology, no matter how good, no matter how best, can change the feeling when we are in person talking to others. School is not just going to school or college. It's not just about learning, teaching you. It's also new friends with other kids, making new friends. We are social animals. We need a social life. And when we don't interact with other people, just lock yourself in a room for a few days and we all get depressed. We have mental issues. And as we have known that in 2020, it has been rising. So I would advocate that we open up the schools as soon as
Thank you.
Do.
Thank you. Candidate Mei Leung, the question is to you now, please. Go ahead.
Yes. Of course, I think in-person learning is the best option. Yeah. But however, I think the remote learning program can be optional for students with a special health condition. For example, if a student is really, after surgery, or like a pregnant student. When I, as a public health nurse, when I work for the high-risk pregnancy program, I serve students who are pregnant. I know before pandemic, a school usually send a tutor to her home. And then I think that those kind of learning is not effective. But I think if they have the option of remote learning, and that would be it will be better than tutoring. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Sakaria, that question is to you now, please.
Thank you, Carol. As I had mentioned in my introduction, my son, he's a cancer survivor. So I want to make sure and ensure that we have a hybrid and a remote learning that's available to whoever that needs on top of the in-person learning. But I do want to talk about two things, right? The first is we need to leverage technology to expand our delivery of learning to our students who are remote. And second is, we need to figure out how hybrid and remote students can be supported if they have any special needs and or mental health issues, right? I've seen few mechanisms in other places, potentially sending professionals to home on a rotational basis to ensure that every student has an equitable education they need. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Taylor Deming, that question is to you now, please.
Thank you so much. What have our students learned? What can we take away? Certainly resiliency, overcoming challenges, and learning to work in teams in a new way. And I've seen them do that in our classes. One thing that we're very fortunate with our district, we had set in place technology one-to-one in preparation for mostly remote days due to snow or weather, but we could not have foreseen that we would have needed to use it in the manner that we did. But technology-wise, we were set, which was a blessing. When I take a look at what's going on for 21-22, we are already putting in place and working for plans for our students to be back in school 5 days a week, full time. That's what we're planning for 21-22. Yet at the same time, we are recognized and are planning for students that need to have a remote option to have that remote option. And again, ensuring that their academic experience is as strong as the students that will come full time. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Adcock, that question is to you now, please.
Forgive me, Carol, may I hear the question in full again, please?
Yes. What elements of or lessons learned from remote learning should be incorporated into the ongoing running of District 204? Under what conditions would you support remote learning as a continued option for district families for the 2021-2022 school year?
Thank you. I don't presume to know all the lessons that have been learned. I can speak to what my family has experienced, to friends, neighbors, people I've met along the way here in the community as a candidate. My hope is that the district before election will really survey the community to see what they have experienced, what they've learned in terms of what's worked and what hasn't. Because I appreciate that people want choice, and that's what I've been advocating for the community. And so I think it's incumbent upon the elected individuals, the administrators, the superintendent to know from the community what those lessons are. We can presume and think, but we have to really get that litmus. And that would be my hope, if elected, to get that input and buy-in from the community to effectively roll out a plan, whatever it looks like for the coming school year, to give the best education possible to our students. Thank you.
Thank you. And lastly, candidate Donahue, that question is to you now, please.
I think that, as most people said, in person is the best form of teaching, but given the situation we faced, what I would say is we provided a lot of professional development to our teachers and accessed a lot of new software tools and lecturers or musicians that I think that's a benefit that we picked up through this remote learning process that we need to take into our full-time back to school activities. As far as remote learning, I think that in the fall, we probably will have to offer a remote learning. I think it should be different, especially for the elementary students where we have teachers that are devoted to teaching the remote students full-time and not having them having to work with both in person and remote concurrently. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay, we're going to move on to the next question. And the first to answer that will be candidate Header. So let me read question number 3. Given current district finances, do you see a need for a referendum to increase revenue? And if so, would you support such a ballot initiative? Candidate Header, when you're ready, go ahead, please.
Thank you. This is a difficult topic and it needs to be approached with a cautious urgency. We will have to continue to make sure that we talk to the community, we realize, we find out what the community needs. And yes, we are going to be facing a lot of challenges when it comes to the budget, considering what the state budget is right now, and the fact that we are already a very lean and a mean budget already. Our resources are very limited, but we have to make sure that we continue to be cautious in our approach towards a referendum. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Harris, you are up next when you're ready.
Outstanding question. Okay, and within our school districts, there are 33 schools, approximately 27,000 students. We've got a current operating budget of nearly $394 million. Got 275 buses that are supposed to operate or will operate during normal conditions. So, these are the kind of questions that we have to do a feasibility study about. So when you're on the board, you're acting as a team, you're acting as a collaborator, and you're looking at these kind of issues to say, okay, how do they make sense? How do we still make sure that all kids can make sure they can reach the highest and greatest potential with the dollars that we have? And if we don't have enough, then we seek other pathways. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Jane, that question to you now, please.
At this time, I don't think I would support a referendum. I think the current board has done an outstanding job balancing the budget despite having such a lean budget to work with. I do think though there needs to be some education to the community in terms of how our budget works, in the sense that there may be this understanding that we're in DuPage County, we're in, you know, in a somewhat affluent area or perceived affluent area, but really this district functions on 80% of a budget that they need for the programs that they offer. And despite working off of an 80% budget of what they need, we still have high academic results, which is just outstanding. And we have teachers that have graduate level degrees. Over close to 70% of our teachers have that, which is again outstanding. So there just needs to be some education around that. I don't think a referendum's needed, but we need to fiercely protect the financial health of our district.
Thank you. Candidate Kosak, that question is to you now, please.
Thank you. We need to listen to our community and find out what the priorities are. Then transparency will be key as decisions are made with the budgets. As was said earlier, we are only funded at 80%, which is on the lower end. And our community needs to understand that it is lean and that decisions will need to be made based on what is going to be best for our kids. So we need to look at the budget under a microscope and move forward. And if a referendum is in order down the line, it needs to be transparent to our community that that is the way we will be going. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Narayan, that question to you now, please.
I'll support transparency in budget, as some of others have spoken. And I also agree that we do have a very lean budget. However, there are still ways of introducing efficiencies in our budget and save money that could be used for unfunded or new projects. And I've looked at the budget. I'm a master in economics. I'm a numbers guy. So I went through the budget of the school district for the last 3 years, and some of the things I've found. One, we are at a historically low interest rate environment. Why can't we, there's a possibility that we can retire the high interest bonds that we have and reissue low interest bonds, exactly how we refinance our homes and save on cost. That itself could save a few $1 million, hopefully, in interest outgo to the school district. We also have $27 million of bonds retiring in the next few years. That money could be used for unfunded projects.
Thank you so much. Candidate Mei Leung, you are up next, please.
Yeah, this is a good question. And definitely I agreed to listen to the community and to be transparent about the process of referendum when it's necessary. However, District 204 is financially tight than any other nearby school districts because we already have less staff and also less educator and lower wages, with lower wages. Therefore, I think funding for instruction should be cut. When it's necessary, then referendum should be, available. However, I think we may prioritize resources. For example, like in AP classes, like in college, it's usually core course and they are teach in big class. And then we may use that, make bigger classes for AP students to cultivate self-learning. Thank you.
Candidate Sakaria, that question is to you now.
Thank you, Carol. Referendum is not the first approach that we need to take before we look at the budget, right? I want to conduct and publish a easily readable budget that we can all review together, which kind of creates the transparency. As many of them have said, that we are at the 80th percentile as far as funding is, and 85% of our revenue for the budget comes from the city, specifically taxes to our residents. So there's other ways that we can actually operationally be more efficient and look at the budget. And in the business terms that we talk about harvesting and reinvesting, that's a strategy that I would like to explore before we look at referendum as a possible option for us to go and get additional funding. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Taylor Deming, that question is to you now, please.
Thank you. I do not support, would not support a referendum at this time for us, for our district. As been discussed, evidence-based funding is, we only are processed at 82% for our district as far as what we need to receive in order to provide all of the evidence-based funding characteristics that are determined by the state. The state has determined that we will not see an increase. So as far as I'm concerned, I look forward to us, just as we did with the Engage 204 process a couple of years ago, engaging the entire community, understanding what our priorities are. We certainly did a number of times share what our budget looks like, but I think again, that is something that everybody is much more in tune with due to the situation that we faced over this last year. So I think an opportunity to share our budget, the way that it works, what happens with our students, what happens, how we are able to do what we do with our high academic success, even though we're extremely lean, I think will be an opportunity for us to gain further information, understand what our priorities are from the district perspective, also from our parents' perspective, and make decisions that way. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Adcock, that question is to you now, please.
Thank you. So for anybody who maybe is new to registering to vote, a referendum is basically a question that's put on the ballot and the community agrees or disagrees. I would be against a referendum. I think that our district has the funding in place that will support students. When you look at the concept of fiscal prudence, I think that the district still has some work cut out for it. When I looked at some of the CARES funding that was applied this past summer in July for $320,000 spent district-wide for these Chromebook charging bays that have yet to be used. I don't think that was responsible. I think our district can be a little more responsible in the funding that we do have available. There's no reason to put a referendum out to taxpayers. We pay enough and we can get quality education with what we pay. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Donahue, that question is to you now, please.
Well, I come from a corporate background, which was heavily under duress. So I spent a lot of time looking at finances. We did max out our bond refinancing in 2017 with no extension and got a $14 million savings. We continue to look at all aspects of our budget. But I would not support a referendum. What I do support is protecting our budget by working with the cities of Aurora and Naperville to make sure that when new developments come in, we get financial safeguarding around our students. I also want to look at the state level when they look at changes to evidence-based funding or pension shifting or other changes in a policy that affects school funding. We have to be there and lobby for our own district support. So I guess I'm into a protection mode and not increasing a taxpayer input mode. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Fosdick, you are last to answer this question. Please go ahead.
All right, let me say first, I would not support a referendum at this time. I'm really proud to be in a district that does a lot with a little. And I think our board has done a really exceptional job of making that happen. A lot of us are feeling a financial squeeze right now, right? This pandemic has affected us in many ways, and that's one of the ways. And I don't know that asking our taxpayers for more money right now is going to be at the top of the list for many people. When it comes time, when there's a need for more money and we cannot work any further with what we have, then I would ask the community, similar to an Engage 204 type forum, where we find out what the priorities are and how we can work together to meet those needs. Perhaps in 2027, when our bonds are paid off and we decide we want to have more money to work with to maybe further reduce class size or increase teacher salary even more, we can consider it at that point, but not at this time. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, the next question will first go to candidate Harris. And that question is this. Enrollment in District 204 is declining, and yet enrollment at some schools is very high. Do you support addressing overcrowding with boundary changes And what factors should the school board use to determine such boundaries? Candidate Harris, when you are ready, please.
All right, well, thank you. I was sitting here thinking about that. I got that question, last night at another forum. And I think that we really have to, do some studies to really see what is really going on. Why are we having reductions in our overall enrollment? Essentially decide what's really causing that. Before we start expanding our boundaries, I think we got to make some other considerations. Can we actually fit the needs of those students once we do that kind of expansion? When I look at what we're doing right now, I think it would require to do a feasibility study just to make sure that all the right facts are looked at that time for that particular issue. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Jane, that question is to you now, please.
From my understanding, the decline in enrollment is not that significant. So I'd like to look into that a little bit more and dig into what may be the causes of that decline. From what I'm hearing and with new development, the chances of increased enrollment is something that the district needs to watch for. And with regard to redistricting, I think every district, it's pretty inevitable that that's going to happen at some point. I know it's dreaded by many. I tend to look at it in a more optimistic way, see it as a chance to foster diversity, perhaps. And I believe the current board is looking into an expert in demographics to kind of assess our district and figure out what's the best way to go about that when the time comes.
Thank you. All right, next, candidate Kosak, that question to you, please.
Thank you. We currently have some of the highest class sizes in the state of Illinois. And research shows that in our younger years, pre-K through about second or third grade, that class size matters in the development of our kids, both academically and social emotionally. So if a boundary change is something that is on the horizon in order to help alleviate that problem, once again, transparency would be key. We would have to look at that through an equity lens and make sure that once again, we are doing what is best for all of our kids to help them succeed. Listening and hearing what our community says is going to be very important, but also going in with them knowing what our ultimate goal would be as a board would be just as important. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Narayan, that question is to you now, please.
Could you please repeat the question?
Certainly. Enrollment in District 204 is declining, and yet enrollment at some schools is very high. Do you support addressing overcrowding with boundary changes? And what factors should the school board use to determine such changed boundaries?
Thank you. Yeah, that's a very real problem, especially the North Naperville is getting crowded in the school. South Naperville is a little undercrowded, and the population is going to increase in the north even more. We have new developments coming up, high density residential areas, City West and in the Fox Valley. So this problem is going to be exacerbated in the future. And that does make the redistricting necessary. So it's inevitable, we have to do it. What I would do is hire a third-party consulting company to make a neutral, unbiased redistricting decisions. And the mandate would be that redistricting has to take care of diversity, equity, and inclusion. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate May Leong, that question is to you now, please. Go ahead when you're ready.
Yeah, thank you. In the past probably 15 years, and major or minor redistrict already happened in District 204. I think the board had done a great job especially the last time the major redistrict, when the District 204 has a new high school, Matea, and when the board redistrict big community like to Wambansi, and actually the result I think best. Yeah, it is better than the residents expected. Since all the high schools, the ranking of all the high schools all improved after they redistricted. So I think it's not, I will see that.
Thank you, candidate Mayor.
Thanks.
Candidate Sakaria, next to you.
Thank you, Carol. Based on the data that was provided to me by the administration, there's 0.9% decrease in enrollment that's happened in our school district. Specifically for a high achieving school district like ours, that is something that we need to consider. As far as school zoning is concerned, we need to continuously explore that as an option, because north side of the school district versus the south side, there's crowding that's happened on the north. Specifically because of the development, but we also need to make sure that we actually build an equitable zoning that helps basically both the students and the parents as well. And specifically, our school district has kind of done a great job in special needs kids and how we actually get them involved. But we also have to be careful that we don't kind of dilute that special need attention that kids been given or can be given by the rezoning. So that is something that we need to make sure that we consider as part of the school zoning. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Taylor Deming, to you next.
Thanks, Carol. I don't think there is any other issue other than that can create such emotional consternation in a district besides the potential for boundary redistricting. Certainly we have seen, and especially on the north side of our district, an increase in students in certain schools, and we do have some overcrowding issues. We do have a demographer that we have engaged, so we are are in the process of getting complete information on what our schools look like and what the potential is for different parts of the district, and we have received some of that information already. So that process is something that we've already recognized that we need to take into consideration. If we do need to look at boundary redistricting, apparently, just as the school board did before, it will be critical to listen to and have listening tours throughout the district, listening to exactly what parents feel, what students feel. But at the same time, we know that any decision that's made will be a very difficult one, but we're going to have to be ready to make that decision. Thank you.
Candidate Adcock, that question is to you now, please.
Thank you. My aunt and uncle purchased in White Eagle when their daughter was not yet in kindergarten. And when she was in 8th grade, they did the redistricting, and they thought their daughter was going to go to Nequa. When they were looking for homes purchased in White Eagle, they purchased because they wanted Nequa schools, and they ended up having their kids attend Waubonsie. And it was devastating at the time, but I can tell you, my cousins had a great education at Waubonsie. They're graduates, and they are now in the workforce. So it's a dirty word, redistricting, but our superintendent was brought on board knowing that was going to be a likely plan and strategy. And I think in terms of enrollment, 2018, we had 28,000 students. We lost 477 to 2019, and to 2020, 423. And into 2021, 1,075 students that are no longer enrolled. We need to keep our quality of schools competitive, and class sizes are a big part of that. We can't have 40 kids in a class. Teachers need to be empowered to bring quality education to our students. So redistricting is a likelihood in the future, and I would be transparent about any plans for that. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Donahue, that question to you now, please.
So when I talk about my 3 hottest topics for the school district, number 1 is pandemic, number 2 is the budget, which we just talked about, and number 3 is redistricting. We have overcrowded schools on the north, and we have underutilized schools on the south side. As developments have come in, we've piece parted them in, and so we have very convoluted bus routes taking students all over the place. Our district at the north end was zoned commercial, and unfortunately now plans have changed, and it's now looking like a lot of residential around Fox Valley and on the north side. So I very much supported bringing in a demographer. And I expect that we will look at distance from schools, equity, all sorts of balancing information to make sure that when we make this change, we make it not only for next year or whatever year we do it in, but for many, many years after that. So it's not going to just be a short-term answer, but a long-term, because no one wants to go through this again.
Thank you. Candidate Heder, you're last for this question. Go ahead, please.
Thank you. We know that the population, student population in the north side and the south side, there's a huge disparity, and we have to make sure that we try and find a way where we can find creative solutions to balancing. However, this challenge we've been facing for some time, and I'm glad that the district has decided to hire the demographer, because that is what is the need of the hour, an extensive report that tells us where the district is and what can we do in order to mitigate some of the challenges that we are facing right now when it comes to population and fall in the enrollment. We have experienced redistricting in the past, and yes, it has caused some challenges. It is a difficult topic for parents and students and teachers likewise, but we have to make sure that when we do it, we keep in mind the emotional and social effect of redistricting on our children as well. So it has to be done in a mindful and compassionate way. And also we have to make sure that we work with the cities in order to make sure that we are able to make an educated decision on that. Thank you.
All right, we're going to.
Carol, I'm sorry to interrupt, but I may have been skipped in that last round. Is it possible for me to answer that question?
I beg your pardon. Please go ahead.
Thank you so much. I appreciate the opportunity to answer. We know, as candidate Taylor Deming said, that this is a really emotional issue for families. And as we heard from both candidate Taylor Deming and candidate Donahue, we have a demographer on board already. We've done 3 different demographic studies in the last 7 years. We know that this is going to be an issue. I think one of the ways that we can address this with the community is to ask what is important to them, right? We know we have these district values and goals of equity and diversity at the forefront. But then I think we need to ask families, what are your priorities? Class size, travel time to get to school, going to school with your neighbors. What is your priority for your students? So we better understand the community's position and how families feel as we make those decisions for the short term, the midterm, and the long term going forward. Thank you.
Thank you so much. All right, the next question, question 5, will go first to candidate Jane. And that question is this. The district passed an equity belief statement this winter. What are 2 concrete policies that you would want to see the board prioritize in line with this statement? And candidate Jane, it is first to you, please.
Thank you. I'm thrilled with the recent adoption of the equity statement authored by candidate Demings and supported by candidate Donahue and the rest of the board. It's wonderful that we're leaders in the state with this statement, and I'm so proud of that. And you can tell by our candidate pool how diverse we are, which is reflective of our great district. So I'm thrilled about that. 2 things that I think we can do is, number 1, increase teacher training on implicit bias and culturally responsive pedagogy. The state has recently, ISB has recently put together a culturally responsive teaching standard that will then be applied to our future educators to know how to facilitate an inclusive discussion in the classroom, and I'm thrilled by that. Second thing we need to do is just re-examine our curriculum to make it more inclusive so that we're sharing the hidden stories of our culture and not just the mainstream stories. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Kosak, that question to you now, please.
Thank you. First, I think that professional development piece for our teachers, giving them the tools and the resources for them to better understand our culturally diverse students, is of the utmost importance. It is my understanding that since 2016, our district has given professional development to all of our teachers in culturally relevant teaching and understanding and reflecting upon their implicit biases. I would love to see that continue. Also, hiring of diverse staff. We need to go out and look for candidates and not just wait for candidates to come to us, and make sure that we continue to hire highly effective teachers along the way. We need to make sure that our hiring process are not biased as well. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Narayan, you are next, please. Go ahead. Candidate Narayan?
Carol, he had to leave the meeting.
Thank you. Candidate Mei Leung, that question to you now, please.
Yeah. Actually, equity is a new concept to me since I was not grow up in this country. And but once I learn about equity, I fully, support that, because everyone created equal, but everyone are very different. Everyone is very different. Everyone's learning, every student's learning ability is different. The background and culture is all different. And then I think District 204 has done a good job about equity, and especially in with the programs for the English language learner, and also for special needs students. And I think.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Sakaria, you are next.
Thank you, Carol. And I completely agree that getting our equity statement as part of our vision and goal is a great achievement from a school district perspective. From what we can do and what I would actually stand for is a couple of core values. Like, first is, how do we retain and recruit diverse teachers? Do that through a variety of ways, right? Doing professional development, kind of giving them certain incentives and type of training that we need to give. Second, I would actually look at it as, how do we actually create more of an adaptive learning methodology to be able to kind of give the students what they're looking for? But that is going to be an important way of how we're going to coach and educate our students to be able to be successful in whatever profession or career they actually choose to be. So those are the two concrete steps that I would actually take on focusing, building equity in our district.
Thank you. Candidate Taylor Deming, that question to you now, please.
Thank you. Ensuring that equity touches every single part of our district is one of our board goal policies that we have had for a few years now. Lori and I are extremely happy that we were able to get our equity statement approved and part of our district. Areas that are really important to me following that are to ensure that, one, we currently have, we continue to have a culturally competent and representative curriculum. That's imperative. Our staff is doing a wonderful job. We can do better. Certainly seeing that we increase the diversity amongst our staff, that we're looking for wonderful teachers across the board, but ensuring that students have the opportunity to learn from teachers of color is extremely important, because that betters all of our students. And then third, just an opportunity to continue to focus on our equity opportunity gap. There is the academic achievement gap is extremely important to see reduced amongst our students of color versus our the majority students. We've been working on it, but we are putting together some values to be able to assess it. Thanks very much.
Thank you. Candidate Adcock, that question to you now, please.
Thank you. Diversity of community and education certainly promotes tolerance and inclusion. The benefits are then built into our routine life. I'm grateful our 3 children live in this community and see diversity as a given, not the exception. I do sometimes worry that we, the grown-ups, are guilty of projecting our own preconceived notions or experiences and perhaps prejudices into our children's budding philosophies or into the classroom. This, to me, is when the waters get murky. The subjectivity of what has become labeled culturally responsive teaching is worrisome. The fact it's being legislated adds to that concern. Anyone who promotes it has to be very clear on what precise practices are involved. As I have seen it used in our district and discussed among the community, diverges from the noble intentions of inclusivity. For a specific example of this divergence, you can visit my website. No student should be made to feel guilty for the ills of society because of their color, creed, etc. My two policies would be for us to encourage inclusive and safe spaces, to see diversity as a given. And two, if anyone in our district is experiencing anything less than equitable opportunity, it must be addressed and remedied. Come to me and I will advocate for steadfast solution.
Thank you. Candidate Donahue, that question to you, please.
Yeah, so our statement that we got put in place was meant to be an overall guidance that drives an entire platform of activities within the district. So I look forward to seeing that pursued and exploded into all sorts of different actions, because equity does touch every part of our school district. For specific things, I want our curriculum to continue to be looked at. I want every student to see themselves in that curriculum, and not only see themselves, but celebrate their culture. I want us to look at activities focused on our younger students around our achievement gaps. And I also would like specific improvement plans built by our schools that focus on improving our equity and our academic performance across all of our different groups of students. So thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Fosdick, that question is to you now, please.
Thank you. So first, as far as equity in regards to policy, existing policy, I'd like us to consider revisiting our disciplinary policy, which currently disproportionately affects African-American students. I'd like to get some student input and family input as far as utilizing elements of positive psychology to perhaps see how we can improve that going forward. Second, I'd like to continue our focus on identifying marginalized students who may not have previously been identified for honors or AP classes. And finally, I'd like to work on making sure that we provide access to extracurricular activities that are low or no cost. So many of our low-income students have an opportunity to participate in our community. Lots of people are able to participate because they have the money or time to do so. And I want to make sure that the kids who have the time, but maybe not the money to participate, are also able to get involved and be a part of their school.
Thank you. Candidate Heder, you are next for this question.
Thank you. I feel very proud that our district is taking these strong steps towards being a leader in the state of Illinois when it comes to equity. And I think that we can continue to be the leaders in the state and maybe nationally. We all have implicit biases, and there have been historical inequities that are part of the system. It is our responsibility that we make sure that we take steps in order to make sure that all our students feel welcome, safe, and included in our discussions. And when they do that, then only they start to see value in their education. When they start to see value in their education, they start to belong in the system. They start to thrive and become a contributing members of the society in the future. Hiring diverse teacher is going to make an incremental, have an incremental effect on our students, because nothing is better than seeing a teacher that looks like you, that understands where you come from and where your cultural backgrounds are. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Harris.
Let me quickly provide kudos to candidate Deming and also candidate Donahue for this equity program that they authored. I do believe in that. It is also on my platform number 4, diversity, equity, and inclusion, to identify effective teachers, school district leaders, staff committed to evidence-based results and excellence, to maintain for all students and cultures, but most of all, support the 204 district mission to ensure that all students can achieve their greatest and highest potential. So I absolutely support that. I think we've done a great job in that, but I would be remiss if I didn't mention a lady who I think was a trailblazer. Her name is Ida B. Wells Barnett. So I'd like to stop there.
Thank you. Candidate Harris. And that leads us to our next question. And the first to answer that will be Candidate Kosak. And the question is this. In light of pandemic-related learning losses and evolving cultural norms, what curriculum changes, if any, would you prioritize as a board member? And Candidate Kosak, that is to you first.
Thank you. We know that there is going to be some learning loss through this past year of the pandemic. We have been out of school, so to speak, for almost a year now. It is imperative that our teachers are articulating vertically starting now for next year. What that means is, for example, I hope that when my son goes from pre-calculus to calculus next year, that those two teachers have talked to each other in their professional learning communities so that the next teacher understands what has not been taught in depth that usually would have been. That vertical articulation piece needs to start now, and then changes need to be made during the summer as to how they are going to proceed with next year's curriculum, but it needs to start now. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Mei Leung, that question to you, please.
Yeah, during a pandemic, every student's learning is different because of their family and availability of the parents and support. All this affect their learning experiences. And I think once the school open back again, I think the district should, school should listen to the voice of the students and their parents. So the school, I would suggest the school to create surveys for them, and then the school can address the students' needs based on their own experiences during pandemic. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Sakaria, to you now, please.
Thank you, Carol. It's pretty evident and it's important for us to kind of have a transition from what the students have gone through from the pandemic learning to a in-class learning. And we have to make sure that our teachers are both equipped and trained to kind of be able to get through that transition, because that's significantly important, right? Because that is what is going to basically create a success for our students to kind of drive their ambitions too. And so part of it is going to be is how do we train our teachers to kind of understand that transition? Like candidate Kozak was talking about, is how do we kind of train our teachers to do what that transition point is and what they have actually done and where they need to take the students to work. It's going to be an important part. Second piece is also for the administration to also look at options of transitioning kids into school. That is going to be another important part to see how do we transition not only academically, but social emotionally as well. Thank you.
Candidate Taylor Deming, that question to you, please.
One of the things that I've really enjoyed about having a chance to visit some of our school administrators is the fact that not only are they looking at how we move forward for this year, but we are already planning for next year. One of the things that our administration is definitely doing is being very forward thinking and very forward looking and working with our school leaders. So already thinking about how do we see and how do we make sure that those students that have struggled, where that academic loss has occurred, how do we plan for those curriculum changes for next year? It's already occurring. We're also already looking at what do we do going forward for the balance of this year? What do we look like for the summer? Because we are going to need to ensure that we bring students in during the summer. One of the things that I've been interested in, not sure how many people would be open to it, but is there a potential for us to look at even Saturday schools for us to help provide resources and to shore up students that have had that academic loss. So we're already planning for next year, but we also are already planning for what do we do for the balance of this year and the summer to help our students who have academic loss. Thanks.
Thank you. Candidate Adcock, the question to you.
Forgive me, Carol. May I hear the question one more time, please?
Certainly. In light of pandemic-related learning losses and evolving cultural norms, what curriculum changes, if any, would you prioritize as a board member?
Thank you. The pandemic learning loss, I mean, who haven't I cried for this past year? Teachers, students, parents, the community. It's been tough. My hope is that for the learning losses, we as a district put a better spin on it and, you know, make it fun for the students to get back to learning. However, wherever they are in their academic journey, make it fun, pull them out of the dumpster fire of last year, and rather than, oh, you've lost so much and it's just, you've got so much more to do, make it fun, you know, theme it, gamify it, make it a collaborative thing, so that they do feel supported and they do feel eager to learn wherever they are in their academic journey.
Thank you. Candidate Donahue, that question to you, please.
So I know our teachers have struggled with this whole remote learning and have done an admirable job given the circumstances, and they've been focused on essential elements in the classes. There is constant communication going on and planning for what these students will move into next year when they're back in school, hopefully full-time, or most of them are in full-time. So we have to offer support through our summer programs for those students that struggled. We had students getting more D's and F's that we did massive interventions with. 67% of them signed up for remote learning. So we need to encourage them to come into school unless they have health issues or health concerns. But for me, it's a topic that is a constant one in our district, and we'll make sure that those students transition into full-time learning mode in the fall, given what they were going through this year. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Fosdick, that question to you now, please.
Thank you. I wouldn't support curriculum changes per se, but as many have said, I would support communication that's already happening between teachers so that we all have a better feel for where the kids are and we can meet them where they are. One of the things I also think we need to focus on is that individual identification to figure out what each child needs as far as curriculum and learning loss, but also equity. They go hand in hand in my mind. And I'd also like us to practice being patient with ourselves and with our students. We will move forward together. And I'd also like us to practice being open-minded and flexible to other solutions, such as Saturday school, like candidate Taylor Deming said, and candidate Donahue, or perhaps considering things like partnerships with outside organizations to help our kids feel more prepared moving forward. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Heder, that question is to you now, please.
Thank you. Moving forward, the most important thing is to find out where all our students are. The most important thing will be to assess where our students are, and the assessment needs to be well-rounded. Academic assessment, but also social, emotional, and mental well-being assessment as well. And that is going to help us with that information, with new data coming in with that information, create a plan, create a strategy, along with talking to the teachers to what they need. And they have really worked hard over the last 1 year, and they know what the students need, what they need. So we have to work with them and make sure that we provide the tools. We are able to fill this educational and social emotional gap that our students may be experiencing as they enter into 2021 school year. We can do summer schools, we can do boot camps, we can do one-on-one tutoring to our students, invite other students who are willing to help other students. There's a lot that can be done in order to make sure that we come out of it stronger and together. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Harris, you're up.
Okay, thank you. I like what Candidate Harris said also, that assessment was essentially my first word that I was going to use. But, you know, assessment of the situation is going to be very important. Essentially, we're going to be listening, what's the voice of the student? Where are they right now in terms of their learning? Some of the seniors had scholarship plans, so we've got to make sure we consider that. Make sure that the counselors are adequately ready and assessed and have an ability to listen to the students. Also listen to the parents, get some feedback from them. If summer school is an option and we can do that financially and it makes sense and it can reach all children and all students, I'm in favor of that also. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Jane, you'll be last to answer this question.
Thank you. Yeah, when I think about learning loss, I think it's really important that we discuss this by contextualizing it, that we're talking about learning loss that's happening during a pandemic that none of us could have ever foreseen, and everyone's trying their best, and that we need to approach it with some grace, and as Candidate Fosdick said, with patience, you know. And we also need to contextualize it in the sense that learning loss can show in many different ways. Academically, it could be just higher levels of anxiety and depression. It could be even physical growth, you know, that's been missing. So we need to understand that. And as many of the candidates mentioned, before we touch the curriculum, we need to assess it, right? And that can be done formally, and it can certainly be done informally as well. As an educator myself, I've seen learning loss and red flags going up, right? And so I've tried to intervene, and I know the teachers of District 204 are doing the same. So that's what I would do.
Thank you so much. Candidates, as I read the clock, that is all the questions that we'll have time for tonight. So we're going to get ready and do closing statements now, please. Again, you will each have 1 minute to do this. And the first candidate to give her closing statement will be Candidate Mei Leung. Please go ahead when you are ready, please.
Yeah. Hi. My childhood nickname was Pa Sigui, which means coward in Chinese. However, it's amazing that I'm running for the election because God has changed my heart and my life 26 years ago when I was in England. As a first-generation immigrant, I'm very proud of being a citizen of the United States of America. I don't think I could have the same opportunity elsewhere in the world. The United States of America is a great nation. I cherish the democracy. And I think everyone running for school board is like very devoted and they sacrifice a lot. I really appreciate everyone. Please vote, come out to vote, and I support you. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Sakaria, your closing statement, please.
Thank you, Carol. I really appreciate like everyone sitting and kind of listening to what each of us had to say. You know, I'm running on a platform which focuses on 5 major pillars, is creating transparency, equity, so that way we can have equitable classes and adaptive learning that we can do. I want community to be involved because success of every student is based on the parents being very involved in it and the teachers and the administrators. So I want to make sure that we are prepared and kind of moving towards that. And I also want to make sure that we are empowering the students because that is going to be a significant piece to kind of get our students involved. And I'm the candidate who's been focused on creating a student advisory council, which is democratically elected, and we get the representation in the board. So I'm hoping to earn your vote on April 6th. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Taylor Deming, your closing statement, please.
Thank you. 4 years ago, I shared my commitment to education excellence every day for every 204 student. As I seek re-election in 2021, I promise to continue to serve and advocate for all students, staff, and district constituents through an equitable, compassionate, and inclusive lens. Championing our students and educators is vital as we move forward. Board support must be unwavering, all-encompassing, and pupil-centered. I am proud of our district accomplishments and my individual contributions, as well as Lori's over the past 4 years. I pledge to continue to provide the strategic leadership needed as we grapple with tough decisions. Yet I will remain forward-thinking as we plan for the future and education excellence every day for all students, for all staff. Thank you for your support. I hope to earn your vote. And remember, I am number 7 on April 6th. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Adcock, your closing statement, please.
Thank you. I'm running for the school board with the vision of improving the relationship between the board and the public it serves. Our students will greatly benefit from a unified community and shared perspectives. As we move on from the pandemic year, I hope to serve the 4-year term alongside dynamic leadership that will ensure our district remains competitive and desirable. Together, we can aim for a new and better normal. The same values I've maintained as a candidate will hold true as a board member. My students' first advocacy, consistent transparency, and accessibility will be unwavering if elected. Putting ourselves out there as public candidates isn't easy. It's a vulnerable thing to do, but it's a great test of one's grit because governance in the 4th largest district in our state requires confidence. If elected, I will listen sincerely to the constituency, but I will also have conviction to act on its behalf. With a genuinely collaborative nature, I will tackle problem solving and policy making. By casting a vote for me, Shannon Adcock, mother of 3, number 3 on the ballot, you can trust that I will serve and trust for you, humbly and with integrity on the Board of Education. Thank you.
Thank you. Candidate Donahue, your closing, please.
Thank you. I retired in 2018 to spend more time on district functions. Districts are incredibly complex, and Susan and I have put in 4 years of learning all the different complexities that happen in this district. I bring a proven track record through my board experience, through my career, and through my extensive volunteer work of integrity and working with others to drive success. And if you look at any successful school district, one of the attributes that you will find is that they have a cohesive school board. The board can work together. They have people with vast differences, but know how to work together to bring cohesion and an answer to any problem that they're facing. I will bring that to the board and continue to bring that to the board. I hope I have your vote on April 6th. I'm number 4 on the ballot, number 4 for 204. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Candidate Fosdick, when you're ready, your closing, please.
All right, thank you again for having us this evening. One of my favorite parts about this campaign is that I'm getting to know more of my community. I'm getting to know more families. I'm learning more about the system in which my kids are educated and receiving an excellent education. As a school board member, I would pride myself on being a sincere, empathetic listener. I hope to further our district's commitment to equity, to growing our social emotional learning for our kids, and increasing our communication and collaboration with families and district leadership as we work together to help each of our students achieve academic and personal excellence. Thank you so much. Please vote for me, number 1 on the ballot on April 6th. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Candidate Heather, you are next for your closing.
Okay, thank you. My work and community service has given me the opportunity to teach and train kids and adults from kindergartners to nonagenarians. I have worked with different groups of people from diverse backgrounds, socially, culturally, and economically. This experience of over a decade has given me a unique skill to be a patient listener and also a collaborative leader, a creative thinker, and a problem solver. In this time of strong opinions, I want to focus on the future. Yes, we are tired, but we cannot stop taking wise decisions. Let us focus on reason and empathy. Let us look to the future and recommit to the students. Thank you for listening. Thank you for this opportunity to speak tonight. My name is Sabah Heather, and I look forward to receiving your vote. I am number 6 on the ballot. Vote for number 6 on April 6th. Thank you.
Thank you. All right, Candidate Harris, your closing statement is next, please.
Again, thank you very much for this opportunity tonight. It was a deep learning experience. My platform issues are, number one, focus on students. I want to make sure I can get all the students back into school safely as soon as possible. Number two, student services, to make sure that all students can grow socially, emotionally, and academically. Number three, absolutely interested in managing the district resources effectively and also efficiently. Number four, diversity, equity, and inclusion. I still hold near and dear the mission of the 204 district mission, to inspire all students to achieve their greatest potential. And finally, that great teacher who taught in person, excellence is never an accident. It's always the result of high intention and sincere effort, intelligent execution, and it represents the wise choice of many alternatives. And that's what I think our students deserve, wise alternatives.
Thank you. Candidate Jane, please give us your closing statement.
Education is the common thread that connects my role as a parent, educator, and a community advocate. Running for the school board for me is a natural extension of what I have been doing, because education is a part of truly everything that I do. If elected, I will advocate fiercely for equity in education, focusing on teacher training, re-examining the curriculum, and hiring teachers that reflect our diversity of our district. I will fight for social emotional developing competencies in our students so that they can manage the stressors of today and tomorrow. And I will support initiatives that allow our district to continue being excellent during the pandemic and afterwards. I hope you will allow me to serve our village as your board member, and I hope you will vote for me, Sapna Jain, number 8 on the ballot, on or before April 6th. Thank you.
Thank you. And Candidate Kosak, your closing statement, please.
Thank you. My husband and I were lured back to Naperville in 2007 because of the award-winning schools in District 204. Our 2 kids have grown up in this district. I have a 2019 graduate, and my son currently attends Neuqua Valley High School. I have always put kids first through the past 25 years in my field of education. In my role as a principal, assistant principal, dean, and teacher, kids have always come first, and I vow to bring that to the Board of Education here in Indian Prairie. Please vote on April 6th. This is an important election, and I would appreciate your support. I am number 2 on the ballot, and to learn more about my candidacy, you can visit cosacforkids.org. Thank you so much for hosting tonight.
Thank you, and thanks to all the candidates. That ends our forum tonight, but we have some people to thank. First of all, the candidates. Your participation is essential for having forums like this, and we appreciate everyone being willing to be here tonight so that the voters are more informed. Thanks also to the audience who's been watching in a variety of ways. Thank you for wishing to become more informed voters by tuning in tonight. And lastly, thank you to the sponsor, the Naperville League of Women Voters and the Indian Prairie Parents Council for your hard work in putting this together tonight. As many of the candidates have said, April 6th is an important date. It is election day. Early voting has begun, however. So however you and whenever you do it, please vote on or before April 6th. Thanks again to everyone. Good night and have a good evening.